And away we go. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to free practice number 2 for the MotoGP Austrian Grand Prix here at the Red Bull Ring. Final 30 minutes then for every rider to get out there, finalise the bikes before qualifying as well. And this should be a very entertaining session. There's a lot going on here, a lot to keep an eye on, and a lot as well to focus on. Yesterday it was dry running, practice 2 had a little bit of overcast to it, but there's a lot more positive energy around, which is always good. No idea what is going to change, no idea what can possibly change, but we're in for an interesting session. Johan Zarco out there as well, you're watching the combined times at the moment, of course. Free practice 1 and 2 still having the same segments together. So yesterday it was Zarco who was the fastest in practice 1. That then goes with Quartararo, Viñales, Alex Marquez, Bezzecchi, Di Giannantonio, Nakagami, Bagnaia, Aleix Espargaro, and Jorge Martin, the top 10. It was Neo Bashini, Johan Mir, Franco Morbidelli, Brad Binder, Luca Marini, Paul Espargaro, Miguel Oliveira, Marc Marquez, Augusto Fernandez, Raul Fernandez, Lorenzo Salvadori and Jack Miller, and then Aiki Lukanoa right at the bottom. That was the running order. This is free practice 2 for MotoGP here at the Red Bull Ring, and there is a lot to look forward to. Let's check in with TNT Sports.
Gearing, base setting on the chassis, so it won't be massive adjustments unless you're struggling or searching for something like maybe Jack Miller is with his KTM today.
And talking of tyres, we dismissed it all as boring yesterday, which was a searing piece of insight from our commentators yesterday. But stiffer construction for the tyres this weekend. Soft and medium, the two options on the rear, and most actually have gone out on the soft already this morning. That's a raceable tyre, isn't it? Especially in the sprint.
Yeah, the reason they've gone back, like you could say there, Mia's got 6 laps on that rear now. It's a 30-minute session, so you go out and just stay out there and get as many laps on it as you can, and literally just see what it feels like. If you can get away with running a soft round here, I'll tell you, it's such an advantage, because there's a lot of spin at this track, accelerating onto these straights, especially out of the slower corners. So yeah, it'd be key if you can manage to make one last.
Interesting, we've seen Mir there, we saw Marquez before. They've got the new fairing on. Mir was running that new fairing on both bikes. Marquez was doing back-to-back tests with it. He says he likes it, just takes some dialing in, so he was doing the difficult job actually of switching between the two fairings
between
yesterday.
the two.
What really shocked me was looking at the timesheets at the end of the day was Mir at the back, because I felt Schweizer had a good day. It looked to me, he looked so much better, Michael.
Yeah.
Then you look down at the end of the time practice and he's last.
It was a promising morning, so it looked like, for me, it was the best session he had maybe since Portimao, where he came out of the blocks and looked comfortable immediately on the Honda, but it's all gone away from him. It looked like lost soul, lost confidence in the front end, not quite able to get answers and understand why he's crashing all the time. So I think the switch to the new Aero body, and him obviously, he was definite. He had it on both bikes right from the outset yesterday, so he needed a change and something different, and it did seem to go away a little bit in the afternoon, but he's still not a million miles away at 1.8 seconds off the time set by Marco Bezzecchi in the afternoon.
Also,
No, he's not, and as you can see on the timing towers right now as well, they've headed out onto the circuit, all set to go, as we see a reminder that this session is not bearing on any other areas of the weekend. This is free practice 1 and free practice 2. There's no direct link between them after the teams complained that they were risking so much going into the qualifying and the racing. So everything just sort of gone a little bit nicer for everybody, which is the correct decision. Totally 110% the correct decision to go forward and go, well, let's switch over then from the combined times to the current times, because it's Maverick Viñales who is fastest from Bagnaia, then Martin, but Viñales, Bagnaia, Martin, 1, 2, 3 at the moment, looking very strong.
It's emerging for Honda there with that new aero package on the front. What Marc Marquez says is definitely feels like on the brakes it might be something we've heard about, the nervous front end, so that's one direction. He still says they haven't got it dialed in for acceleration out of corners. It's spinning up still on the rear, and it sounds to me, Neil and Michael, it's going to take some dialing in, but at least there's a positive sign.
I was just watching on screen there. Maverick, this is the problem that he has with a brilliant. If he tries to go down the inside, he can't stop it. But he just went straight on, so you can see him shaking his head, frustrated. It's still a weak area for them to try and pinch an inch on the brakes and slip up the inside.
Could that have been a bit what we were talking about here? Aero is playing such a big role now in getting these bikes stopped that you can be dragged on that little bit. You pull out, and the Aprilia has performed much better than we expected this weekend up to this point, but still looks like, as you say, that's the last little piece of the puzzle they need to work out.
Yeah, and it is an issue. We're hearing riders talk about it a lot in the braking zones into the corners. Obviously, we're well aware of bikes giving off really good slipstreams down the straights. We're on board now, as you can see with Bezzecchi, about to get the slipstream off Oliveira.
Miller goes fifth.
This zone, when you get to the braking zone, if you're directly behind a rider, what's happening is you're getting almost a slipstream into the corner. You're not getting the wind on the front of your aero, so it's not pushing the bike down. And what's happening is, on the initial grab of the front brake, it's locking the front, which is the worst thing that can happen. And that's what happened with Marco Bezzecchi. That's what he said. If you watch it, it does look a bit like that at Silverstone when he crashed. So
his approach was so fast, so different. It was almost weird.
Yeah, it was like he'd made an error, a big error. But obviously afterwards he said, no, there's nothing I can do.
No, there's nothing wrong.
Unfortunately, I got caught a bit of draft off Francesco Bagnaia, and the first thing it did was lock the front. And by then, at that point, the only way to not crash is release the brake ever so slightly. Then you're rushing in so fast, and down he went.
Interesting to hear from Fabio Quartararo as well in that interview he did with Abby before, asking for more engine, and he backed it up yesterday. And we were discussing it yesterday. Actually, is it all about the engine? He says the aero package that he ran in the race in Silverstone, but has started running here consistently through the weekend. He said, yeah, it's definitely better. Definitely
it's an improvement.
He goes back to the fact our engine still needs more power, because there's always a compromise, isn't there, Michael? When you are putting all this aero, there's a drag effect, and you need that extra engine to not be undercompensated.
Yeah, if you have 300 horsepower or thereabouts, which is rumoured to be on the Ducati, and the Aprilia's knocking on the door off, as is KTM. So if Yamaha are 20 horsepower down, let's say, they can't afford to be really aero heavy at a circuit like this, where it is all about acceleration. You need the downforce to stop the bike, but mainly to prohibit the wheelie. So yeah, it's so important for them to be able to get the jump off the corner, and that's what Ducati unlocked with their aero package, their lowering device. They can really put a lot of power to the ground before the bike wants to pivot and wheelie. So yeah, Yamaha still need to unlock a little bit more horsepower and then work on the aerodynamics a little more.
Luca Marini's up towards the line now as well. He is 8th now with a 1:30.374. Fabio Quartararo on that Yamaha 1:30.101 goes up into 6th position across the line. So the deltas are improving in many areas, which sometimes is a good thing, sometimes is definitely 110% a bad thing. Not many people know exactly what the difference is going to be between. But Maverick Vinales third at the moment. He's a 10th down now. I was about to say 0.1 down, but he's 0.126 off the pace as Binder top 1:29.854. So Binder, Bezzecchi, Vinales in this free practice session, taking over the control times at the front. Just want to say good morning to everybody watching along everywhere. We've got the Twitch and YouTube chat up. Good morning to Cole. Good morning to Omi. About to open up Discord, actually, if you're wondering where I am. Binder 1:29.980 doesn't improve. Vinales 4/10 down now in the third sector. Bagnaia looking strong at the line. And Aleix Spargo 18th across the line. Anyone improving? Vinales third. Bagnaia 5th. 1:30.074. Improves on time, not position. Aleix Spargo very close across the line. Goes up to 4th position. A 1:29.964. So a better improvement coming between them all now in this session, and fingers crossed as well, it's not going to be as dramatic as we once thought it was going to be as the racing continues. Omi's managed to get him in the box now. We're opening up Discord, so I'll say morning, Omi. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well. Excited for today.
MotoGP up soon as well, so get ready for that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Good morning as well to SHT in the Twitch chat. Says, hey Josh, any big crash from yesterday's session or this session? Marcus Ramirez in Moto2 crashed and broke the air fence. That's about it, really. other than that, everything's been quite calm so far. Marc Marquez has dipped it once in turn 4. A few riders have gone off, but there hasn't been a major accident, which is a relief at this circuit, as the history with this place coming in. But across the line comes Marco Bezzecchi. He's right up behind Augusto Fernandez. Bezzecchi does a 1:29.896. Would have been faster, but Binder's done a 1:29.813. 41 thousandths of a second faster than his own best time. Maverick Vinales towing Bagnaia across the line. Bagnaia improves up to 5th, 1:29.991. Vinales stays in 3rd, doesn't improve. Here is Bezzecchi once again, coming through the rack and back chicane at turns 2A, 2B. Up the hill towards Remus. And looks okay, there's a rider getting out of the way there. I think it's Jorge Martin just backing outside of the way as they continue running down. And Bezzecchi looking stronger at the moment as, whoops, a little bit of a rear wheel slip. Coming into turn 4, Sochas Gold just gets it all stopped up nicely. 1:29.813 then for Binder. He's the fastest time in this session. Of course, this is free practice, so the times do combine, but it does not matter in one bit. It's mainly going to be the qualifying session up next that everybody's got to be focused for and like 110% on it. No mistakes, no errors. Just drop the throttle and away and see what you can do. Bezzecchi, 3/10 down and having a little bit of a moment coming into Rindt as he comes into Red Bull Mobile, the last corner. And pulls the throttle back across the line. Bezzecchi, 3/10 down, doesn't improve. 1:30.097 across the board. Alex Marquez, 1:30.129, 3/10 down. Paul Espargaro 16th, he's 0.05 of a second down, and he's coming to the pit lane, same as Marc Marquez, who's got those new winglet fairings on the front. In fact, several riders coming into the pit lane as well at the middle half of this session. Working with TNT.
I'm out of touch. I've completely misjudged the speed, and fair play, hands up. And Marc Marquez, yesterday, he got in Marc's way when he was on a fast lap. Marc should have gone through, perhaps, in the top 10 yesterday. And Marc said, hey, I've been there. I've been there, done that. And the approach speed, especially on somewhere like this, down to turn 4, is so high on such a short space. Oh, there's Marco Bezzecchi, I think that is turn 4,
yeah. We see a lot
through
of
the
that.
gravel,
and that's because of that. The approach speed is so high, so downhill.
Yeah, got the new camera on the back. You can see it there at the bottom of his hump there. So that's
I had a question yesterday. We had a question from someone saying, what about in a crash? Trust me, it's all been taken into account by Dainese. That is the #1 priority and concern around that.
Yeah, you'll see, oh, I'll tell you what, that snapped violently. You'll see this, and we have seen this all weekend, really steep down there. Riders are just trying to, literally, they're working on their brake marker. And you have to be so aggressive now on that initial grab of the brake. You're trying to screw off as much speed as you can. Sometimes the bike can just kick sideways because you're not straight up and down. You've got a little bit of lean angle. So if the back wheel comes off the ground, it will always want to go left or right. It'll kick. And yeah, that's why we've seen so many people going on there.
Well, with Brad Binder extending till 2026, fantastic news for him and KTM. I was just wanted to know about Marco Bezzecchi, what we see happening at Ducati, because so many different variations or variables are at play in there. Will Frankie Morbidelli go to Gresini? Will he go to VR46 and Bezzecchi move on and still leave a seat at Gresini? Will Zarco has been offered double his money to go to LCR? Honda, we understand.
Oh, it's getting confusing now.
To take it. There's a lot still at play, isn't there, in terms of the rider market? Marc Marquez still one of those names saying such positive things about KTM will soon be the #1 manufacturer on Austrian TV this week. There's still things to play here.
And this man's probably the linchpin. Once the decision's made where Marco Bezzecchi goes, everything will fall into place within a matter of days. So if Ducati give a definite no, not providing a 5th factory bike for the VR46 team, then he seems to be weighing heavily on loyalty and wanting to stay inside the VR46 team because he's happy there. But even a GP23 machine in the guards there is going to be good enough to battle for the championship. But yeah,
as he's showing on last year's bike this year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I like what we hear from Uccio. You know, Marco deserves a factory bike. We want the best for him, but Yeah, something tells me he might go to Pramac. I don't know. I've got the feeling that
It was just the way Ucho spoke to us last race and said, well, we want to keep him, we want him to stay, and if he's got a factory bike, great. If not, we'll crack on.
I think this is the problem with Marco Bezzecchi. He's come through the VR46 team. He's come through everything like that. He wants to have the chance to win a championship. He's running for it this year on a bike a year old. They're on the Ducati 22 bike. Prima Pramac have the 23 bike. That's always the way. So I think it could switch over. But Omi, you've only just started watching MotoGP really this year in the commentary team. Ducati have been dominant throughout, no matter what generation of bike they're on. So would you move to get the 24 bike, or would you stay and get the 23 bike?
Well, I don't have any MotoGP knowledge, but I guess stay, if it's all going right.
Yeah, I would. I would stay. That team is managed by Valentino Rossi. You stay under their wing as long as possible. Prima Pramac, it's good, but it wins a couple of races, but it's not the top team. Whereas Mooney, I think in this year alone, Mooney VR46 have won more races than Prima Pramac in the last 2 seasons. So, and they're on the new bike. Now, whether that's Zarco and Martin, I'm not sure. But Martin's won sprint races and 1 Grand Prix. Whereas Bezzecchi's won 2 sprints and 3 races. So I would stay. I would stay. There is the Prima Pramac of Johan Zarco, actually. How much longer is left on his contract, I'm not entirely sure. Apparently Brad Binder's just been given pole position by that graphic. Still trying to fight through. But yeah, I do wonder exactly what is going on with the team. As Zarco fights down the hill into Sochi's Gold at turn 4. Marc Marquez getting some new winglets on the rear of his bike now. 4 winglets in 2 pieces. And the other side, 2 winglets cut down the centre slightly in half. So looks like Marc Marquez is going to do some simulation work on 2 different bikes. Just work out which one he wants for qualifying. They attach the starter motor. That chokes the engine up, refuels, and away he will go over. There's the Riker manoeuvre, and away down the pit lane. One of the longest pit lanes actually on the calendar for MotoGP, because it starts at turn 9 and finishes at turn 1, and that's very unusual for the MotoGP paddock. It's like with Silverstone and all the F1 Grand Prix layouts we go to. But for a short track, it's a fast, abrasive circuit that we love to race at. On board now with Brad Binder at KTM's home race and Red Bull's home race, of course, here in Austria. This is Jack Miller, actually, on the 43 bike. We're on board with. Graphic came up incorrect. Hard front tyre of 2 laps. Rear soft tyre of 6 laps. SHD says, who do you have for pole position for the sprint and race today? Pole position for the sprint race and the Grand Prix, because qualifying counts for both, I would say will go to Brad Binder. And for the sprint race win, it's either going to be Binder or Jack Miller. But I think I said Binder in the Grid Network show on Wednesday, so I'll stick to my guns there and say that. If you're watching us on Twitch, by the way, you don't have to leave us in 10 minutes time. We will go to the starting screen and we will get ready to start the qualifying show, and then we'll edit them up in the highlights later on into separate shows. So if you're watching on Twitch, you don't have to do anything. You just stay with us for qualifying. On YouTube, you will be redirected once this stream ends to the qualifying stream as well, because it's a different segment of the show. So you don't have to do much, but you will be automatically redirected once the session ends. So on YouTube, stay where you are. You'll go to the new stream. On Twitch, just keep watching. That's all you got to do. And everything will be A-OK. I think, Omi, as well, we're all just set for Moto E later. That's going to be the one that I think the first racing action of the weekend is going to be very dramatic, I think.
Well, Moto is always exciting, so it really is something that we're always really excited about on Saturdays. So, yep, cannot wait. Gonna be very exciting like last time.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. Really is. 9 minutes to go. We're not going to see the usual flurry of finishes at the end because we don't need to. That's what free practice means. Anybody can just rock up and have a few moments, test different things. It's a better format than what we had before because it's 2 free practice sessions, a practice that counts. Still don't know why we need warm-up on Sunday morning though. But 110%, this is a better format now for MotoGP. Oh, Brad Binder's crashed!
Oh.
And that, I think, is at the chicane. That's at Rackenbach chicane. He's gone down, brought out the yellow flags in sectors 1 and 2. So, he'll get out of there just about. The bike might have lost a bit of engine power, but I reckon that's just a drop. It's at 2B. So, that's the second half of the chicane. It's from the right over to the left mid-corner. 8 minutes to go. I would park that bike, try and get it back to the pit lane if you can, because you might need it for qualifying. So he's braking into the braking zone, rear steps out, front wheel's the wrong way, turns over, and it's going to flick him up over the curb. Oh, no, it just drops it. And it's destroyed part of the winglets as well, so that bike needs a repair. That's a weird one, Omi, because you see, it's as it's crossed over, it's actually the curb that's brought him down.
Yep. But hopefully he will be able to get back with no issues. He should be, and then participate in qualifying. But, yeah. It just feels so normal for someone to crash from P1, doesn't it, in MotoGP, compared to like F1, because we would all be screaming our heads off if that happened to Verstappen.
He's got it going again, which is great news, and they do have backup bikes. If this was Moto2, Moto3 or Moto E, we would be screaming because they don't have a second bike in those categories. It's only the Premier class that has 2 motorcycles per rider, and that was a rule that was introduced as well. Every rider in MotoGP already had a spare bike, but it was a rule that was introduced that you can use 2 bikes across a Grand Prix if it starts to rain, because then they can come in and swap bikes to a wet weather tyre without having to red flag the race and restart it and all that lot. So it was a good idea, but that rule's still in place for Moto3 and Moto2 and Moto E, that if it starts raining, we have to display the red flag so that they can change tyres. But that is no longer the need for the Premier class of running, because they can come in, swap bikes. So it's a nice alternative to what was already needed to get everything sorted. So it's nice. There is Pier Talaramasso, the Michelin Motorsport tyre director, as Marc Marquez into the Rackenbach chicane at 2A and 2B. And we're going to see a replay of him now with a different rear exhaust that's coming out the right-hand side, with a bit more of a winglet fairing now, actually. So that's a little bit of aerodynamic adjustment for Marc Marquez, because usually the exhaust is right underneath, so they've brought that up completely. Interesting. Brad Binder's in. 2 exhausts on his bike, of course. And a wait, so he'll sit out the remainder of this practice session. So his second bike is fully prepared for qualifying, although he has to go, he's in quali 2 automatically, so it's not as big of a problem as you might think it is, as Marc Marquez, 18th at the moment, he's up by 0.030 towards the line, so he's still got some deltas as they break down into Jochenrindt, turn 9, last corner, turn 10, Red Bull Mobile. 6th place estimated is Marc Marquez. Let's see if he actually gets that as he comes across the line. Revs up on the bike and goes P9 with a 1:31.77. Marc Marquez does have to go through qualifying 1, however. Only managed 13th fastest yesterday in the practice session. That is timed. So he does and will have to go through once again. Binder, Bezecchi, Viñales, Aleix Spargo, Bagnaia, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the moment. A few minutes left. Let's check in quickly with team.
No, you can seriously do a couple of laps. You go, I'm all right. It's good. It looks really fit. It looks fast. Any of the other ones, you'd be like, who do I pay? Because I'll pay a lot to just do 1 lap on that Yamaha. Because that sounds beautiful, and obviously I know that's an inline 4, but yeah, it's the KTM sounds so user friendly. KTM probably sounds the most user-friendly, I'd say.
Yamaha are looking like, as well, there might be a step in the right direction, Michael. Do you agree with Fabio when he says, engine?
Yeah.
I need engine.
Well, he has said it from day one, but well, not day one, but the last few years. But when Andrea Dovizioso came in the Petronas bike, he argued that it was rear grip they needed, it was traction. He said obviously he's experienced the development of Ducati and knows how much they propel off the turn by power to the ground. So sometimes you're always chasing what seems like what is required, but actually a real in-depth thinker like Dovey did believe it was traction. It's the first point of contact, as soon as you open the throttle, getting power to the ground, but with the bike not wanting to spin or wheelie, and I think Ducati have unlocked it so well.
I remember an engineer telling me this year, and I'm not going to name any names, but he told me that he'd worked for a team, an inline 4 team, and he now works for Ducati, and he said, it's funny, we always thought that Ducati had all this power, and they don't have as much as you'd think. Which is quite interesting, isn't it?
Well, it's
but Ducati have found a way of using the power they've got. It's not the fire breather you think it is.
Which what someone said, isn't it? The ride height devices, the aero, it all plays in. It all comes in to getting the bike sat down at the right angle for the aero to take full effect and pushing down on the rear, so you're getting the drive out of the corners, and that all, obviously every single tiny kilometre per hour that you're getting carries on all the way down. That's why it's been so hard to battle with them. But I don't know, do you both feel like every single weekend, this is what KTM were telling me actually when I was at the factory this week, it changes every weekend, but I feel like people are getting closer every weekend.
It seems, you look at KTM, for example, Brad Binder's top of the timesheets, but he's also top of the speed trap, so it is a little bit power to the ground, it is acceleration off the corner. Those are the keys to a fast lap time right now in MotoGP, and everyone is, they're pushing the envelope. Ducati are the only one that don't seem to be bringing any real mid-season innovations, because they're the ones setting the bar. At the moment, everyone's chasing them, so they don't need to develop mid-season, but they'll still be working back at the factory with Tiro. He'll be out there evaluating stuff at Mugello and Misano throughout the season.
And when I spoke to Paolo Ciabatti at Silverstone, it was interesting on the Thursday, and I had a good chat with him, and I asked him the out-and-out question of, I went, like, what's next? I didn't say what's next, but I sort of did. I went, is there any other big sort of...
What's the key?
Yeah, what is it as they come through? 2 minutes to go then in this practice session, the last run before qualifying. It's a very crucial 30 minutes. They've got to get everything sorted and set up. D'Antonio. Oh, yellow flag, sector 3 and 4. Oh, it's a big one!
Oh.
And it's Fabio D'Antonio. He's okay. He's kneeling in the gravel trap, but his bike has hit the air fence. Now, is that a red flag if it's popped it? So Fabio D'Antonio down at turn 9 and 10 at the Jochen Ring corner in Red Bull Mobile. Colorado does a 1:31.38, but that is, it's turn 9, so he's on the entry. The bike's got away from him. Bike's up and away. The aero screen has gone. Let's take a look at it. So I presume the front's going to drop mid-corner. Yep. He'll bail, and the bike downhill, maximum acceleration. Not a lot of stopping time. Hits the air fence. And it's no. And checker flag's coming out anyway soon. Yeah, power rolled, and I think it didn't pop the air fence. Luckily, the air fence doing its job and just stopped it. You see the overnight rain and the water on top of it there as well. So not ideal, but he'll have to go through Q1 anyway. So, and that bike is not returnable. So one bike only for D'Antonio going into qualifying. So we'll note that down. Checker flags out soon. Fairly harmless crash, really, wasn't it, Omi, to be fair? Just a front dropping.
Yep. Pretty harmless for him, luckily. You don't want any major crashes, as now we are at the end of this session, but we're going to be soon into qualifying.
Yep, as Quadraro 3/10 down at the moment, 8th fastest. So reminder, these times don't set the running order for qualifying. That was set yesterday. We already know the runners and riders for Q1 and Q2. As Binder 1:29.813, Bezecchi, Vinales, Aleix Spargo, Bagnaia, and box call for Marc Marquez. So don't do a practice start, effectively, but Marc has dropped down into 12th position. Ironically, the running order is quite similar to what we're going to have in a few moments' time in qualifying 1 and qualifying 2. Alex Marquez across the line, pulls the throttle back on the Ducati, on the Grenesci, does a 1:32.77 across the board, so not exactly the top endearing time as they back out of it and do their practice starts. Not getting much information from the controller this weekend on the timing screens, like with who's taken the checkered flag and who hasn't. It's like it's regressed a little bit. It's not exactly brilliant equipment we are running with. So Bagnaia across the line stays in 5th, a 1:33.81. Mark in, not doing a practice start. He'll get ready to go through qualifying 1 now, up in around about 9 minutes time. So everyone has now taken the checkered flag and has confirmed their running orders. Fabio Di Giannantonio is the last to do so, but he won't complete it. He was fast sector 1, so it would have got up into the top 10 if it was up to there. Bezzecchi and Bagnaia practice their practice starts on with Johan Zarco, so an Ducati getaway with the whole shot devices. And that's it, confirmed. The session has concluded, and it concludes with Binder from Bezzecchi. And that is an Aprilia of Aleix Espargaro, I believe, not doing too good. So Aleix Espargaro is having to be wheeled back to the pit lane. The bike has stalled, so that's not exactly great news. So it's Binder, Bezzecchi, Vinales, Aleix Espargaro, Bagnaia, Alex Marquez, Marini, Quartararo, Zarco, Hoy Martin. Then it's Oliveira, Marc Marquez, Di Giannantonio, Miller, Morbidelli, Nakagami, Bastianini, Paul Espargaro, Mia, Salvadori, Ralph Fernandez, Augusto Fernandez, and Akila Kanoa. That's it then for practice. Qualifying is up next on Twitch. You don't have to go anywhere on YouTube. You will be automatically redirected. We'll see you in a minute. Bye-bye.